I teased a little bit in our last episode of Building Modern on a Budget that the house is pretty much done. We are all moved in and living in the house, but we are just finishing up a few small details. As I've been sharing finished photos of the house over on Instagram and Facebook, hands down, the questions that I get asked the most have to do with the topic we're going to talk about today. You guys want to know all about our stairs. I know I try to get excited about every step of the building process, but I'm being totally honest when I say these are the stairs of my dreams. These were the one aspect of the house I was most looking forward to getting installed. And I'll go ahead and spoil a little bit of the reveal by saying they're even better than I was hoping. These stairs are probably the most beautiful thing I have ever owned or may ever own in my entire life. As soon as we picked the plans for our house, I knew right away I wanted to do something really dramatic in the stair area. I always really loved the look of monostringer or floating stairs, but traditionally a set of stairs like that has to be fabricated on site by a custom steelsmith, and they're usually really expensive. Fortunately, a few years ago, I actually stumbled across a company called Viewrail who makes custom stair components that they ship directly to your house. I was actually delighted to find out that they will design and manufacture a monostringer steel staircase system, which they call Flight, and then send the pieces to your house so you can either hire a professional or do what we did, DIY installation. So in this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the design that we chose and the installation of our Flight system. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to be talking all about the total cost of our stair system, as well as covering where we stand on the total budget of the build, like I do in every video. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Bryce.
And we are building a modern house.
We're trying.
Hopefully building a modern house. We want a cool contemporary house and we need a workshop, but we have an impossible budget. So that means we have to get really creative and be prepared to roll up our sleeves and do some of the work ourselves. It'll be hard, but it will be worth it. This video is brought to you by Viewrail. If we go back in time, you might remember that we began framing our house in spring of 2020. Typically, during the framing stage is when we would have built the basic structure of the staircase. But since we planned on going with a custom steel monostringer system, we simply framed in the walls around the stair opening and had to rely on ladders for quite a while to get up and down from the second story. Needless to say, most of our subcontractors and a couple of our inspectors were a little confused. Where's your guys' stairs?
Where the stairs?
Hey, you guys gonna have some stairs?
Excuse me, where are your stairs?
Where are the stairs?
Where in Sam Hill are the stairs?
As soon as the rough framing was complete, we could take our final measurements and send them over to Viewrail so they could begin building our custom Flight system. Whenever anybody decides to work with Viewrail and orders a custom stair system, they're assigned a team which includes a designer and an engineer. We picked out the finishes, the designer helped us make sure that it would fit the space, and the engineer helped us ensure that all of the measurements were compliant with International Building Code. Once the team helped us work out a design, we were sent preliminary drawings to approve before they started to fabricate our Flight system. A few weeks later, it was delivery day. The delivery truck driver was a little confused and pretty surprised when he asked what we were receiving, and we told him it was a set of stairs.
I say we start with the big stuff, see what's inside.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, big stuff.
Going for the big stuff.
There's a lot of boxes.
There's a lot of boxes.
Since we received the metal, the wood treads, and the glass railing all at the same time, the shipment included quite a few boxes, but everything was well labeled and very securely packaged. We started by opening everything up and sorting components into categories. All the treads in one place, and the metal stringer components in the other, and hardware in their own boxes in another location. Speaking of hardware, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that our Flight system came with everything we needed for installation. I mean everything. Every single screw, nut, and bolt that we might need, a couple specialty tools and sockets, and even small details like adhesive and glass cleaner for the railing. As soon as we finished up the drywall and paint on the inside of the house, it was time to start the stair installation. The first stair component that needed to be installed was the horizontal cross support for the landing. Back when we were framing, we included a couple of extra studs and a header so we would have plenty of support to sustain the landing. Before we could start moving pieces into place, we had to start by cutting back a little bit of drywall and adding some more backing. There was plenty of structure to support the load of the landing, but after measuring, we decided that we needed an extra small header that would connect to the existing framing that we could attach the steel cross support to. Before we could move the landing cross support into place, we first had to attach the bolt plates on either end. With having a steel-on-steel connection, it was important that all the bolts were equally tightened and properly torqued to the same specification. Viewrail included a torque wrench as well as all the necessary bits to make sure that this process went smoothly. We moved the cross support into place and temporarily supported its weight using screws so that it could be repositionable while we attached the other pieces of the stringer. Beginning on the lower side of the switchback, we began bolting together the pieces of the steel monostringer. We carefully moved the stringer into place and began to carefully adjust the landing with the stringer attached, making sure that everything was level and plumb. We then began to attach the steel monostringer components for the upper side of the switchback. On this side, gravity was not in our favor and it was a lot more work. Since we knew what the final height of the staircase needed to be, we were able to lower the stringer into place and secure it permanently to the floor beam of the second story. Different type of fasteners were provided depending on what material we were attaching the stringer to, but since we were securing it directly to wood, we were able to use simple 1/2-inch lag screws. Once we checked both sides of the stringers to make sure that they were running at the correct angle, and we adjusted the landing to make sure that it was sitting nice and flat, it was time to secure the lower end of the stringer to the concrete floor. There's lots of different options when securing something to a concrete slab, but we chose to go with the method that we used when we secured all of our walls to our foundation. We used a hammer drill with a 1/2-inch bit to drill through the existing holes in the floor plate into the concrete below. We then drove 8-inch long Titan HD screw anchors by Simpson Strong Tie to hold everything securely in place. At this point, we didn't have stairs, but it was exciting to see something filling up the space already. Next, we moved on to the components which I named saddles. The saddles were basically brackets which were attached to the stringer, which would later support the wooden treads. Just like everything else, the brackets came pre-drilled and were very easy to bolt on. Liking what you see? Tag that like button down below. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe as well. The next step before we could move on to the wood was to place the steel screw plates on the landing support. Just like the rest of the steel stair components, the plates were bolted to the frame using a thread locker and a torque wrench to get the right setting. At this point, I would love to say that we moved on to the wood treads the next day, but it was not the next day. It was several days later. 3 months later, in fact. You might be able to tell from the fact I'm wearing a hoodie and we don't have rivets of sweat pouring down our faces.
I don't sweat.
It's been a couple of months since we got the stringers installed. It was not because we're lazy, I promise. We had a reason why we wanted to wait to install the wood treads.
Right. There's a lot of people coming in and out, working in different areas of the house, a lot of mess. It was best to leave the treads out so we could keep everything nice and clean and undamaged until we were closer to the end.
Most of our subcontractors have been awesome and tried to keep the house as clean as possible, but when you're carrying materials and ladders and things around the area, accidents happen. And we really wanted to try to protect the wood treads as much as we can, and especially the railing.
Yeah, the glass hand railing would be...
Yeah, that could have gone catastrophically bad.
It would have been terrible had one of those handrails been damaged, so.
Only a couple of subcontractors are gonna come back for some finish work. And other than that, it's just gonna be us finishing up the rest of the house.
So we're actually at a really good point now to finish installing the Viewrail flex system.
Let's get going.
If you've been a Pneumatic Attic fan for a while, then this is the part that you should get really excited for. Time to start working with the wood. As I mentioned before, when we worked with our Viewrail design team, we were able to make all the selections for the colors and species of wood that we wanted to use for our tread and landing. I know it's a bit of a controversial option, but we decided to go with my favorite wood of all time, poplar. Before you start leaving me nasty comments down below, make sure you watch the rest of the video. I address why we chose poplar towards the end. Because the treads are made out of solid natural wood, we wanted to try to keep patterns and colors in the grain as consistent as possible.
I'm thinking this one over here.
Wait, the next one? So that one? Yeah, I like how this one has the dark.
Yeah.
So let's leave that one there and then maybe
Like switch these two, or
Yeah.
this one and that one.
move that one up here, switch that one there.
Yeah.
The stair treads got attached using these really cool fasteners called lag studs. To help drive the lag screws easier into the pre-drilled holes on the bottom side of the treads, we rubbed the coarse threads down with screw wax. Poplar is a fairly soft wood, but screw wax is really helpful to lubricate fasteners, especially when driving them into a dense hardwood. To drive the lag studs into the bottom of the treads, we used a cool little threaded socket. We could screw the machine threaded side of the lag stud into the socket, and then drive the lag into the wood like any other type of fastener. Once we lowered the first tread into place and made the needed adjustments, we were able to reach up from underneath to add nuts to the bolts, securing the tread in place. As we moved up the stringer, the rest of the treads had enough clearance underneath that we were able to attach them using heavy-duty wood screws. The oval-shaped slots in the saddles allow for any expansion or contraction that might happen in the wood down the road. After we had the first course of treads installed, it was time to move in the solid wood landing. Even though the landing was in 2 pieces, that is 4-inch thick solid hardwood. Believe me when I tell you those suckers were heavy, but nothing that Bryce and I couldn't handle ourselves. We decided before we moved on to the upper treads, it'd be a good idea to level and straight edge the lower course. We took our time to make sure that everything was really lined up well to prevent problems installing our railing down the road. We then finished installing the treads on the upper course of the stairs using the same process as before. I somehow forgot to film it, but each stair tread also came with a clean, simple steel plate that covered all the exposed screws on the underside of the bracket. The plates attached using just 4 really tiny little decorative screws, so once they were in place, the underside of the stairs had a really simple, clean look. Once the last batch of treads were leveled and straight lined, we finally, after several months, had functional stairs. We celebrated the fact that we could actually access the second story of our house without climbing up a ladder for a few days, and then it was time to start the most exciting but also the most intimidating part of the stair installation, the glass railing. To begin laying out for the railing, the first thing we did was to apply a little bit of painter's tape to the ends of each tread. We first measured the hole locations in the glass railing panels themselves. We could then use those measurements to determine where they would align with the sides of the treads. We chose to use stainless steel standoff pins, which attach to the sides of the treads for our railing. We measured vertically to make sure that we were going to have at least 36 inches of vertical height from the railing in order to meet International Building Code. The half-inch thick glass railing that we received from Viewrail is tempered glass, and as I mentioned before, came prepared with holes for the standoff pins already. Those holes could not be altered in any way, so we really took our time to make sure that the layout for the standoff pins was perfect. I will say though that we discovered, because of the design of the standoff pins that we were sent, we didn't have to be quite as perfect as we originally thought. In addition to being beautiful, the standoff pins were super heavy duty and very easily adjustable. We actually had more room to play with than we anticipated. Using a cordless drill, we carefully drilled 2 half-inch holes into the ends of each tread. We could then bolt on the lower base portion of each standoff pin. At this point, the standoff pins were intentionally loose to allow for repositioning once we got the glass hand railing in position. Speaking of the glass hand railing, I don't think I've ever been more excited to open something in my entire life. Much to our surprise, the positioning of the glass hand railing actually went a lot smoother than we anticipated.
All right, railing's going in finally. So Bryce is doing all the heavy lifting, and we recruited a couple of pairs of extra hands just because, it's glass and it's really heavy and we don't want to drop it. So what the idea is the strong people are holding the glass up, and then I'm coming in behind them and screwing in the standoffs.
And they actually grip pretty well. There's a lot of adjustability in all the standoffs, so it's get it up, get it into place, and then tighten it down.
Yeah, we were really worried we would have to have all of our holes perfectly perfect in the exact spot, but because the design of the standoffs and because the holes in the glass are a bit oversized, we actually have a lot of play to move any direction that we need.
Yeah, definitely makes it a lot easier to get it into the correct position.
I was definitely glad that we had an extra set of hands to help with all the heavy lifting, but the oversized holes in the glass panels and the adjustability of the standoff pins made the panels surprisingly simple to get aligned. Once Bryce and our helper John lowered the glass panels into position, I hurried behind them and screwed on the cap portion of each standoff pin. As we worked our way from the bottom of the stairs up to the top, we checked about 100 times periodically just to make sure that the panels were sitting nice and plumb and in a straight line relative to one another. At this point, we would have installed the stainless steel railing cap that Viewrail provides with their glass railing system, but unfortunately there was a little bit of mix-up with our order, and the hand railing cap wasn't going to be able to be shipped to us in time for us to pass our final inspection. We decided we had to come up with our own temporary solution, which we will replace with the stainless steel railing cap once we receive it. In order to have a graspable handrail in the meantime and meet code, we went to our local metal supplier and picked up 3 lengths of 1 1/4 inch square aluminum C-channel. We placed the aluminum C-channel on top of the glass and then used the end of the glass panel to determine the angle and length which we needed to cut the aluminum. We then notched, cut, and bent the ends of the C-channel so they would fold over, creating a smooth edge. To hold the end tab in place and to seal the seams, We used the same aluminum brazing technique that I used on my end table, which I built about 1.5 years ago. I'm definitely not a professional brazier, but if you've never tried aluminum brazing before, I highly recommend it. The only special equipment it requires is a MAP gas torch and an angle grinder if you want to smooth things out. We decided, since the standoff pins were made from stainless steel, that we would never be able to get the aluminum to match them perfectly. Our best option was to paint the handrail cap the same color as the painted steel stringers. I used an orbital sander to prepare the aluminum for paint, and at the same time softly rounded the sharp edges of the C-channel. A nice feature of aluminum is the fact that it's way softer than steel. You can actually cut and shape it using most traditional woodworking tools. Aluminum dust is pretty nasty for your lungs though, so make sure you're always wearing a respirator. I finished off the aluminum hand railing with 3 coats of primer and a heavy-duty spray paint and allowed it to dry fully. While the paint was curing, I went inside and used a dry erase marker to lay out the placement for the C-channel as well as the foam gasket that would go underneath. Applying a foam gasket underneath the aluminum would not only make sure that the handrail cap had a tight fit, but would also protect the glass from the aluminum being able to slide around or bang on top of it. I looked around for options to use for a makeshift gasket for this temporary hand railing, and the best option I came up with was adhesive-backed foam insulation tape. It's the same kind of tape you wrap your pipes with in the winter to prevent them from freezing. At least, those people who live in cold climates where your pipes freeze, so I'm told. And we wrapped some additional foam around the ends of the glass. The last step of the hand railing installation was to firmly press the aluminum C-channel on top of the gasket. Once we gave everything a nice cleanup, the stairs of my dreams were finally done.
Just like almost every project throughout the house, there's like 1% of the job that still needs to be finished. If you have really great eyes, you'll notice we still need to fill these screw holes for this nosing that covers the carpet edge. And I also haven't decided what we're going to do about this mounting plate that comes up to the second story.
I would say most experienced DIYers are totally capable of installing a Viewrail flight system in their own house. In our opinion, the switchback orientation that was needed for our particular house was a little bit more challenging than some other options. But Viewrail has really thought through the process start to finish and provides you with enough resources to make this project very doable.
All my woodworker friends out there, yes, I know, poplar is a fairly soft wood, but it is still technically a hardwood.
It may not be as strong as oak or maple, but it is still a very hard-wearing surface. And even on top of being a hardwood, we've got a good quality commercial grade factory finish on it.
A custom set of stairs like this, including all of that custom steel, glass, and wood, is always going to be a little bit more expensive than a builder grade option. When we were drawing up our budget, we knew this and we allocated a pretty generous budget for our stairs. I cannot stress how easy Viewrail is to work with. They actually have an online pricing calculator right on their website. So you can enter the rough dimensions and size and shape and wood species and railing style that you want for your stair system, and it will spit out a price for you. In addition to custom stair systems, Viewrail also provides all the products that you would need for railing systems and tread replacement. Basically, if you got some ugly stairs and you want to make them look pretty, I highly suggest you go over to viewrail.com. The flight system starts around $9,500. Because we needed what's called a switchback set of stairs for our space, that is a little bit more expensive of an option. A custom set of flight stairs by Viewrail in a switchback configuration starts around $13,300 and goes up to just shy of $23,000. I know, that's a very large number. Just to make sure we were getting the best deal, we actually spoke with a few local metal fabricators who did this kind of installation. And they all told us to expect $12,000 to $15,000 just for the steel alone. That didn't include any of the wood treads, landing, or any of the railing. If we had a local contractor design and fabricate our stairs, we would have easily spent $20,000 or more. Our exact system, with all the options we chose, including the glass railing, came in around $18,000. As soon as I discovered Viewrail's products, I knew right away that was the company we were going to go with for our stair system. We were very lucky that we reached out to Viewrail and they were willing to sponsor our entire flight system, including that gorgeous glass hand railing. Because Viewrail generously covered the cost of the flight system, the only additional expense that we had to cover for the stairs was around $68, and that was just for that temporary aluminum handrail. That puts our total out-of-pocket cost for our home build so far at $39,700 or so. At this point in the build, we have not had to pull any more from our construction loan, so that puts our total a little over $205,000 borrowed. Like I said in the beginning, the videos are just catching up to where we are in real life, and don't worry, that total amount borrowed goes up quite a bit, and we ended up borrowing lots more than that. I really can't say enough good things about our experience working with Viewrail. I was really impressed with how professional and accommodating they were and how willing they were to do whatever it takes to make sure our stairs turned out just like we wanted. In the next episode of Building Modern on a Budget, we are going to be talking about some of the prettiest spots of the house, the kitchen and bathrooms. That's weird to be talking about bathrooms as being pretty. Weird sentence. Weird things that I'm into. They turned out really well, guys. So you're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed to the Pneumatic Attic channel and that you've hit the notification bell so you get notifications as soon as a single video goes live.
If you want to get caught up on the rest of the Building Modern on a Budget series, check out this playlist. And if you like other types of DIY content, watch this video as well. We've got more fun and revealing videos in the works already, so make sure you're subscribed to the Pneumatic Attic channel. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.